Left of the box. A little while ago, it was in the news that some police officers were arresting someone in a parking garage, and that person ran over a police officer and killed him. Horror! And the politicians and the police, and this was in Toronto, they were all upset and wanted this person convicted. Well, the trial ended and he was found not guilty. And we'll dive a little bit into why that was the most reasonable outcome possible for this. And if anything, I think the person who was charged with this can go after a whole bunch of people for defamation and just how they targeted him. So we have here, suspect charged in connection with death of Toronto police officer granted bail. So this is one of the original articles, and as you can see, it's from September 22nd, 2021. And and this is from Global News.
31-year-old Umar Zamir watched and listened from the Toronto South Detention Centre as a list of bail conditions was read out. While he stands charged with the first-degree murder of a Toronto police officer, he has been released from custody.
We need to take a really hard look at the bail system. These are people.
This is that whole, evil people should be behind bars. We shouldn't let these people out on bail, and yet it was proven this person was innocent. They wanted to keep an innocent person. Like, that's the thing about bail that people tend to forget. In the United States and in Canada, this has been a pet peeve of mine for a little while. Are we countries where you are presumed innocent before found guilty in a court of law? Is that what our countries stand for? Is that what we believe and what we practice? That people are innocent, that they are presumed innocent before found guilty in a court of law? Because the way that a lot of the police officers, a lot of some people on other networks kind of present bail as a way to imprison people and keep evil people off the streets. They are presuming guilt. They're not presuming innocence. And the point of bail is to make sure that people go to their court hearings. That's the point of it. The point of bail is not to punish people. There are people where they're flight risk and there's other underlying circumstances and things of that sort, and I get that. But the vast majority of people who are behind bars are people who couldn't afford their bail, who might very well be innocent of any crime or accused crime.
People that are accused of very, very serious crimes, and they need to be held accountable.
A publication ban covers the reasons for granting bail, but the president of the Toronto Police Association calls the decision appalling.
There needs to be a message sent out, to other criminal elements in our society.
So there needs to be a message sent out to other criminal elements. So already this person is saying that this officer here is saying that this person who's been charged is guilty. He's a criminal element. And by letting him out on bail, it's sending a message to other criminal elements that they can get away with this sort of thing.
That if you commit these acts, you're not going to be getting bail.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford called the decision beyond comprehension. It's completely unacceptable, he tweeted.
Premier of Ontario commenting on this. Because of course he's commenting on this because it was a police officer in the line of duty who was killed. And that's when Doug Ford actually cares about workers who die on the job. So this is beyond comprehension. It's completely unacceptable that the person charged for this heinous crime is now out on bail. Our justice system needs to get its act together and start pulling victims and their families ahead of criminals. So again, he's calling this person a criminal.
That the person charged for this heinous crime is now out on bail. Our justice system needs to get its act together and start putting victims and their families ahead of criminals.
It was just after midnight on July 2nd when Constable Northrup and his partner, who were in plainclothes at the time, responded to a priority call at this underground garage. Police said it came in as a call for a robbery but was subsequently upgraded to a stabbing.
Officers said Northrup, a 31-year veteran of the Toronto Police Service, was struck by a vehicle and rushed to hospital, where he was later pronounced dead. At the time, the chief of police said,
"We believe this was an intentional and deliberate act."
And with bail granted,
Okay. Just, I get that police do that when they're giving press conferences, just giving their opinions on it, but it really feels inappropriate for them to be commenting on something when it's in-house, you know? I just,
Chief James Raymer tweeted, "The decision by the court is one step in what will be a long process." Zamir was released on 3 sureties pledging a total of $335,000. He will live under house arrest monitored electronically. He must surrender his passport, may not leave Ontario or attend an international airport, and cannot drive a car. His lawyer said his client's family is pleased and that they welcome him home.
In the words of Zamir's lawyer, there is much more to this case and to this tragic situation than meets the eye. He plans to seek to vary the terms of the publication ban, he said, so that the public can have a better understanding of the case and why the decision was taken today. The case is back before the courts on October 1st. Back to you.
Thanks, Karen.
okay, so based on this, suspect charged in connection with death of Toronto officer granted bail. So we've heard that an officer was run over, plainclothes officers, blah, blah, blah. There is some context missing from this that is so important. So important. But just the way that this was originally painted, it's like, oh, this person intentionally ran over this police officer. But when you hear the details of this, wow. So here's the judge saying, "My deepest apologies. Judge offers rare apology to Umar Zamir after trial sheds new light on case." So what happened was these plainclothes officers ran into this underground parking lot and started going after this vehicle with Umar in. His pregnant wife and small child were also in this vehicle. And these big, burly, plainclothes police officers aggressively approached his vehicle without identifying who they were. What would you do if a couple of big, burly men started slamming on your car windows and you had vulnerable family members in the vehicle with you? That is some major context that was missing way back when. But it came out in court. So, remember, it's best to maybe presume innocence before, just assuming they're guilty of being a criminal.
Welcome back. We have breaking news from the University Avenue Courthouse. Umar Zamir has been found not guilty on all counts in the death of Constable Jeffrey Northrup. Not guilty on all counts. Zamir had pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder in Northrup's death in July of 2021. A 12-person jury reached the decision after deliberating for almost 3 days. Over 3 days.
Now, I pause it here, and it goes dark, so you can't really see it, but this is an indication of what one of the cops look like here. And it's a bit hard to see. Let's see if I back up a bit. It's a bit hard to see, but there's nothing about this that would indicate they're a police officer. Just this person and another person like him running up on your car with vulnerable family members in it. What would you do?
Stay with CP24 as we continue to follow this developing story. We have a...
Yeah. This guy here runs up on you when you're in a car with your pregnant partner and a small child. And this guy and another guy like him just runs up on your vehicle. You might try to back up and then run away in any way possible to protect your family.
Reporter in the court right now. Beatrice Vaisman has been covering this for several days. She's going to be getting us reaction to this. We're getting word from her that she told us that Umar Zamir burst into tears when the verdict was read out by the jury. We also have our Steve Ryan, who's going to be giving us his reaction, as well as our slew of legal experts who are on tap. So again, keep it here on CB24 as we continue to fill you in and read.
So a bit from the article here. A notably different version of events than what was first described by police and politicians came into focus over the course of Umar Zamir's 5-week murder trial in Toronto, culminating in a rare move by the presiding judge. After a jury acquitted Zamir of first-degree murder charges he faced in connection with the death of Toronto Police Department Constable Jeffrey Northrup, Justice Anne Molly offered the 34-year-old man an apology for his troubles. Mr. Zamir, you're free to go, Molly told him in the courtroom on Sunday. You have my deepest apologies for what you have been through. Northrup died on July 2nd, 2021, after being struck by Zamir's BMW in the parking lot underneath Toronto's Nathan Phillips Square. There we go. The officer had rushed the vehicle alongside his partner, Lisa Forbes, both plainclothes while investigating a stabbing that had just taken place nearby, the court heard. So a couple plainclothes officers just rushed the vehicle. Zamir, with his pregnant wife and young son at the time, has always maintained he did not know the people approaching his BMW were police officers. He attempted to escape the confrontation, first reversing his BMW and striking Northrup before driving forward and fleeing the scene, according to evidence presented in court. At a trial, prosecutors alleged Zamir knew Northrup was a police officer and that he drove directly at the man. Northrup was almost 300 pounds and stood 6'3". Okay, if a man who was 300 pounds and stood 6'3", was coming at me in a vehicle, looking like he was about to do me harm, I'm driving away. And if I'm trying to protect people, you're driving away as fast as you can. You're not necessarily intending to hit anyone, but you want to get your loved ones to safety. He was huge and visible, Crown Counsel Karen Simone told the court. The defense's case, on the other hand, presented a very different version of events. Zamir had gone downtown that day for a regular family outing, accompanied by his pregnant wife and small child. He had feared for his life when he saw 3 individuals run at him and acted out of fear, they argued. Zamir had no criminal record, and even if he had known the individuals were police officers, would have had no reason to flee, his lawyer suggested. So, yeah, basically, if they had indicated they were police, showed the badge, had police uniforms on, he probably just would have stayed and answered whatever questions they had because he wasn't guilty of anything. The defense has also alleged that officers who testified during the trial lied. They lied. They lied repeatedly under oath. This is alleged that the officers lied repeatedly under oath. And they're still officers. Lawyer Nadir Hassan told the court that 3 officers who witnessed the incident, including Forbes, lied in the witness box, stating Northrup was standing in the middle of the laneway in front of Zamir's car, visible with his hands outstretched when he was run over. Malloy echoed this claim in her charge to the jury Thursday, stating the officer's testimony didn't match the physical evidence and advised the 12-person panel to watch out for possible collusion. Wow. So we have the people here who are supposed to uphold the law, to make sure other people are upholding the law, breaking the law. Where's the consequence for them? Are they going to go to jail for lying under oath? Are they going to be charged like any other civilian who would lie under oath? Possible collusion? You know, that sounds like, when it comes to a court case, that sounds like a pretty serious thing for police officers to be doing. Zamir broke into loud sobs as the jury handed down its verdict. His wife, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name, cried into the shoulders of family members, speaking to reporters outside the courthouse shortly after. Zamir apologized for the accident. I'm sorry for what happened. I never meant for any of this to happen like this, the Brampton accountant and father of 3 said. Sunday's acquittal drew disappointment from Northrup's family and fellow officers. Oh, they were disappointed that justice was accurate. His life has already been held for the past few years because of these accusations. Northup's widow spoke in front of the courthouse on Sunday afternoon, telling reporters she was very disappointed in the outcome. Well, maybe, just saying, if the officer didn't aggressively go after a man, his pregnant wife, and small child in a car without identifying himself in plain clothes, maybe if the police officer was doing his job correctly, who's at fault here? Is it Umar's fault for trying to protect his family? Or is it the police officer's fault for not doing his job properly? When asked if service would address allegations of perjury from its officer, I never know how to say his name. He's the current police chief. Said Sunday wasn't the time, telling reporters we'll talk later. When asked by reporters Monday at an unrelated police conference if the case would spark any police change within Toronto Police Services, Mayor Olivia Chow said any operational or human resource matters within TPS fall under chief jurisdiction. For matters of policy, she pointed to the board. She's been really weak at pushing back against the police, unlike what she kind of ran on when she went to be mayor of Toronto. I trust that process, Chow said. It's really, at the end of the day, up to the chief to manage the police services, and it's not my place to comment on. It's mayor of Toronto. Actually, he kind of is. Kind of is. The details revealed throughout the trial built a new understanding of Northrup's death and how the events of July 2nd unfolded. The day Northrup was killed, the then Chief of Police, James Zamir, called the incident a deliberate killing. The officer died after being intentionally struck. So again, this is the police adding their own biases in before any of the evidence and facts have been laid out. Struck by a vehicle near City Hall overnight, Zamir told reporters in a press conference. Weeks later, politicians and public figures disavowed the decision to release Zamir on bail, with Premier Doug Ford calling the judge's decision beyond comprehension. We'll get back to something about Doug Ford in just a moment, too, when it comes to this sort of thing. Mayor at the time, John Tory, said it was almost impossible to imagine a circumstance in which an accused in a case of first-degree murder would be granted bail. Again, is he innocent? Is he presumed innocent? If he's presumed innocent, then it's like, is he a flight risk? Is he a risk for leaving town? Is he a risk for more violence and all that sort of stuff? Like all those other factors that key into whether or not a person should be released on bail. The fact we don't know the reasons why the presiding judge made such an extraordinary decision thanks to a publication ban is very troubling. It is wrong and represents one more argument supporting my long-standing call for bail reform, the former mayor wrote. We should all know the reasons that lie behind such a questionable decision. Oh, here's somebody actually agreeing with me. Okay, criminal defense lawyer Daniel Brown, who was not associated with Zamir's case, said it serves as a reminder of how important and fragile the presumption of innocence is in Canada. Our police chief and political leaders were quick to toss aside that protection to push their own political agenda. See, there's somebody who's actually like a lawyer saying the same thing that I just said, and I didn't read ahead in this article. Just saying. Brown told CTV News the city should be able to expect police will uphold the law and that officers will not approach any case with a specific agenda. He called the police chief's comments on a hope for a different outcome equal parts chilling and disturbing. The pursuit of a murder charge against Mr. Zamir and the failure of the top police officials to accept Sunday's jury verdict as being correct is suggestive of a tunnel vision on the part of the prosecutors and the police that underlies the wrongful convictions, the lawyer says. Following Sunday's verdict, Hassan offered a thank you to supporters. When we first took the case, there was a lot of hatred directed towards my client, but they didn't know the truth, Hassan wrote. Now Canadians know. I didn't need to add it, but there was a GoFundMe to help raise costs to cover the expenses of the court. And the reason why I'm not adding it is because it far surpassed what was the GoFundMe. They were asking for 200,000. When I looked at the link, they were 80,000 over target. So there's some good news with that at least. So his court costs will be covered, which is really good. Speaking outside the courthouse on Sunday, Zamir closed his remarks with an expression of gratitude to his lawyers, whom he called angels, but also to Canadians. I can't thank enough Canada as a whole, he said. I thought, sorry, I'm just names. I thought his wife and I made a wrong decision when we came to Canada, but now I see that Canada did not let an injustice happen. So a little bit more to this, and CP24 is all over this because, you know, they're one of Toronto's main news sources. Why was Umar Zamir tried for murder? Observers raised questions about persecution. I'm not going to read the whole of this article, but it is, again, pointing out how biased the police were when it came to this, as to why he was tried for murder in the first place. Like, legal observers are questioning the decision to charge and prosecute a man for murder in the death of a Toronto police officer when the evidence did not support it, saying the case raises concern about fair process in the justice system. This does have a lot of legalese people posing a lot of questions as to how this was allowed to happen and how the police were able to act with impunity, and the fact that they lied. CCLA presses for action after Toronto Police Chief comments on Zamir and acquittal. So Toronto Police Chief has yet to apologize for the doubt he cast on a man's innocence when commenting on his acquittal. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association said Thursday, as it asked the civilian body overseeing the force whether it thinks the chief's comments were appropriate, and we'll read his comments in just one moment. So here we have police officers, the chief of police, saying how disappointed he is at this. There's allegations that the police actually lied while under oath, all because a man was trying to protect his family when he thought he was being attacked. Yeah, during trial, prosecutors alleged Zamir chose to drive dangerously even though Northrop and his partner were nearby, and alleged Zamir intentionally ran down Northrop. Defense lawyer argued Zamir didn't know they were officers and feared his family was under attack from robbers or gang. They argued Zamir had no reason to want to flee police and tried to escape as safely as he could. So this is the official statement from the police chief, Myron I keep on wanting to say dimwit. I see this. Myron Dimwit statement on loss of Detective Constable Jeffrey Northrop and verdict. So remember, this is the police chief sending this out after this person was found not guilty of all charges. This has been a difficult time for the Toronto Police Service family. A loss of Detective Constable Jeffrey Northrop has been devastating to his family, his partner, members of the 52 Division, and the entire policing community. Jeff loved coming to work and fondly remembered by all of us who knew him as an outstanding police officer and member of our community. While we respect the judicial process and appreciate the work of the 12 citizens who sat on a very difficult case, I share feelings of our members who were hoping for a different outcome. You should be hoping for the truth to be the outcome, that if a person is guilty, they're found guilty, and if they're not guilty, that they're found not guilty. That is the outcome you should be hoping for. And part of the reason why they're having so much difficulty with this is then maybe they should reflect on how they actually do their job. Maybe they should, do some introspection and say, okay, so this officer who they loved died in the line of duty. Well, maybe we should change how we do things to prevent this from ever happening again, so that another innocent man isn't put in the position of, trying to flee the scene and accidentally killing a police officer. Because from the sounds of it, he was not trying to kill anyone. He was just trying to protect his family. But what? So they share the feelings our members were hoping for a different outcome? What? So you were hoping that everyone would just believe the lies the police officers were telling on the stand. You were just hoping that you could get away with, putting this poor man behind bars and putting all the blame on him for what happened. Is that what you're saying, dimwit? Just absolutely disgusting behavior from the police, who have over $1 billion in funding in Toronto. Police service there. Their budget is over $1 billion. And this is the same police chief that basically sent out like threatening messages to the city because the mayor wanted to give 12 million less in a 20 million increase in the police budget. She just wanted to give, like an 8 million increase as opposed to a full 20 million. And the police chief went onto his social media accounts and say, if you do this, then, should the time come that you need help, we might not be there for you. Not going to help you out. Sorry. Might not be there if you don't give us all the money that we're asking for. This is the same police chief. We will now focus on coming together as a policing family, blah, blah, blah. Every Toronto police officer should go home to their family at the end of the day after serving and protecting in... This is just... It's dark when you know what the percentage of domestic abuse with police officers is. I'm just saying. On July 2nd, 2021, a terrible tragedy occurred, and we want the Northrup family to know. So basically, yeah, support the widow. Sure, yeah, do that. That's good. Do that. She lost her husband while he was on the job. Support her. Fine, but like the fact that it's your protocols that led to this officer's death. And so Sam here on Twitter, Sam Hirsch, I think. Good person to follow on Twitter if you're still on there. There's literally no better advocates for police reform and or lowering police budgets than police themselves. And so here we have Catherine McDonald from Global News just saying, as the chief was leaving, he was asked if he would address allegation of perjury and collusion in testimony. The chief replied, "Today's not the day for that. We'll talk later." And he just, ran into his car. So if you can't hear it, they're saying, are you going to, say anything about the accusations of perjury? And that's his answer.
Well, today's not the day for that, John. We'll talk later.
Yeah, he just says, today's not the day for that. We'll talk later. And this person has a whole bunch of more little clips and stuff that people can go, Catherine McDonald on Global, to see more little clips and stuff if you're still on the hostile fart sauna known as Twitter. And so here's T-Dot resident who covers a whole bunch of Ontario and Toronto Doug Ford stuff as well. I wonder if Global News will think twice about the cop killer headlines in the future. So again, we're going back in time, September 2021. Breaking, accused cop killer. Umar Zamir is being released on $335K bail. Zamir is charged with first-degree murder of Constable Jeff Northrup. Zamir must live under house arrest, blah, blah, blah. So here we have the media just saying he's an accused cop killer. He's a cop killer. He's accused of being a cop killer. You could say that he's, accused, or like, I don't even know, like, what would be the better headline is responsible for the death of a police officer in the line of duty. I think might have been a better headline. Not as spicy, doesn't really catch the audience the way that they would hope. A little bit more accurate. And so, breaking, Premier Doug Ford addresses the Umar Zamir verdict for the first time in that tweet in September 2021 when Zamir was first granted bail. So, of course, people are like, hey, Doug Ford, Dougie, you tweeted about this. What do you think of this? And he has a very chicken shit answer to
He
that.
saw the verdict and he was exonerated.
Yeah,
Any regrets?
it's a very sad situation that happened, and I respect the court's decision. My heart goes out to Margaret and her family as well. It's a very sad situation, guys. So I want to just focus moving forward on the economy, creating jobs, and you're all invited to the announcement on Thursday.
Announcement?
That's what we're going to be
Do you feel like an apology is necessary, though, for that tweet? Sorry. Do you feel like there's an apology that's necessary, Premier, for that tweet? There are some who are saying that what you said was inappropriate in September of 2021.
You know, something at that time, I had limited information. The courts have decided.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You know, something at that time, I had limited information. I had limited information.
Uh-huh. He had limited information at that time. Then why the fuck are you tweeting out about it? Like, maybe wait and get all the facts first before, throwing this poor man under the bus, so to speak. Like, as the premier of a province, you shouldn't be adding your own opinions into court cases like this. He could have just simply said how upset he was, that this officer lost his life in the line of duty, even though you don't see him tweeting that out when it's another type of worker who loses their life in the line of duty or while they're working. And he could have just said, I hope the facts come out in court one way or the other. But no, he more or less accused him of being guilty of being a cop killer at the time. Not in those words, but that was kind of the intent behind what he was saying.
The courts have decided, the jury decided, and you have to respect the justice system.
Do you regret it? Do you regret it?
Again, you have to respect the justice system. The jury decided, and you have to respect the justice system.
Okay, there's a reason why I'm backing up on that, and we'll get to that in just a moment.
Do you regret it? Do you regret it?
Again, what I was saying is there's a limited amount of information I had at the point, and the courts decided. So thanks, guys.
And the courts decided. Okay, so why I keep on going back to this. I've covered this before. Folks, we need to appoint like-minded juries. We can't have people listening to the facts and evidence in our courtroom. I have done stories on this before, but Doug Ford is trying to get more like-minded judges. And he's trying to find little workarounds in the committees to get more conservatives there, more like-minded people who will just take whatever the police officers are saying at face value, as opposed to, actually going over the evidence. When the evidence actually backs up what the cops are saying, there's a word there in my head, and I wish it could come out more smoothly when I'm in these middle of these rants. It would sound a lot more professional then. He's not happy, the fact that this person was, found not guilty of these charges, and he would have much rather have people, judges and stuff that might not have apologized and might have been more hard or might have dismissed more information and all that sort of stuff. If he could get his way, he would change the courts so they would have found this man guilty of killing this police officer, even though this man was not trying to kill anyone. He was just trying to protect his family. Oh, a lot of people commenting on this story. Yeah, it's quite the story. I'm so glad that Umar was found not guilty, and that his GoFundMe was met and surpassed. Like, that's probably the best outcome. And, again, because he was on house arrest, he was released on bail, he was on house arrest, he was monitored. So it's not like he was out wandering about or anything. He got to spend that time with his newborn baby because his wife was pregnant when this incident happened. And so there was a good possibility that if they had locked him away and not granted him bail, he wouldn't have been around for the birth of his child. Like, people don't understand some of the consequences of keeping people, behind bars when bail can be granted for the sake that you just want to punish them ahead of time, that you're not presuming their innocence. And then they can miss out on things like the birth of their child. He lost, a lot in this. I think he lost his job and a whole bunch of other things. This is the best outcome for him in this situation, but the fact that he was even charged in the first place was so biased of the police department. Clearly, when they started to actually lay out the facts, it was just a tragic accident. He didn't want to hurt anyone. He just wanted to protect his family. Grand Theft Autobot, I wonder what his stance would be if the cop ran the person over killing them. Well, we don't have to wonder what that would be. We see it all the time when the police kill on purpose or on accident people all the time. They're never charged. They get off all the time, all the time. Like, I think here in Canada, there's been some rare cases where, the police officers were actually charged and there were some consequences put in place for, killing an unarmed suspect. But the vast majority of time when a police officer kills somebody in the line of duty, there's no consequences. None. And I've covered stories similar to that where they've done something horrendous. Like there was one cop that was drunk driving and crashed his car, then went to a motel, left the scene of the accident, and lied to a different police department about what happened. He got demoted. Just demoted for a couple years, but was still making over $100,000 a year. Or another police officer that was found guilty of harassing his ex and threatening to kill her. Got demoted for a couple years. And again, he was making over $100,000 after that demotion.